And you're very welcome to another episode, second episode of the season for the League of Ireland Women's Premier Division podcast here on FinalWhistle.ie with myself, Breifne Earley, and of course, as ever, Aaron Clarke. It's a big one, Aaron. It's the 2025 season preview. We've got a bit of a taste of action at the President's Cup at the weekend. But yeah, looking forward to another great season. How's your week been since we chatted to you last week?
Forget about my week. How has your week been? The birthday yesterday. 5 million views.
We're going to go there.
Views. Of course we're going there. You're not getting away with that. You know, if it was mine on the show, you'd absolutely do the same thing to me. You're not getting away with that. I'm sure you've had an absolute pleasant weekend. Some big milestones here.
Do you know what's funny? I didn't even realize. Yeah, it's a big milestone. Yeah, I had my birthday yesterday. It was great. Pancake Tuesday. Had served up a plate full of pancakes with the family. But the 5 million thing at the weekend, only realized it because I went checking for the birthday just to see what number we were at. So we actually passed just Saturday gone. We were with 7,000 short of it on Friday evening, and we smashed through that, one of our busiest days ever for March this time of year. But the website's been going really well. I suppose people who are familiar with the podcast will also be very familiar with the website where we keep kind of stats and all that sort of stuff. But we do the women's football, but we also do GA right down to club stuff, men's, women's, hurling, football, rugby. It's a bit of a behemoth, as I mentioned last week, but it's been growing over the last few years, and it's kind of getting to a place we're really, really happy with it now, which is great. So yeah, it's been a big week.
You talked about the birthday falling on Pancake Tuesday. The question I have to ask is, League of Ireland's influencer, your pancakes weren't as bad as El Nasty's already. I don't know if you've seen it.
I didn't see them now. I'm not a Ghost fan, so I don't.
You had a spice bag on a pancake, so yours weren't that bad.
No, there was plenty of Nutella floating around. I'm not a nut fan myself, so no Nutella for me. But the family definitely got devoured half a tub of Nutella yesterday. But no, me just plain pancakes. Thanks. I'm fairly plain, straightforward like that. But anyway, enough about pancakes and religious-ish events during the week. It's another season of the Women's National League. It promises to be exciting. I know you sent me the task from last week of picking my 1 to 12 of where these teams are going to finish, and it's been in the back of my mind all week. And to be honest, I've chopped and changed. Just chatting to you off air before the show, I've chopped and changed again. I think there's about 7 or 8 teams, and I don't really know where to put them. They could basically all end up somewhere maybe there's 3 or 4 teams I believe could win the league, and then there's maybe another 4 or 5 that could compete for like second or third. So it's been a big challenge. I hope you have your list with you, have you?
I have. I've just about finished it. Whether I'm happy or not with it is another question, because I'm still thinking in the back of my mind, even watching back the highlights of the President's Cup, to wonder, do I need to make a change? Do I not need to make a change? I think really it's one of them that everybody's going to take points off everybody. And I think we sort of spoke last year about being one of the lowest points per seasons. And I think there's the Twitter account I showed you earlier, a game of 2 halves, literally say, even back that up with the fact that Athlone, 2.35 points per game, third lowest league winners in terms of points per game. Like, I expect it to be lower again this year. It's going to be that competitive. And even like we were chatting about last week, and you were talking about goals and goal scorers and all that sort of stuff. And like when you look at some of the stats and you actually look at them on paper, you sort of think, okay, maybe I was leaving it wrong.
The stat that struck me, and we did talk about it anecdotally last week when you were talking about like what the top striker of the season, what the top goal scorer gets in a year, has gone from 20 to just over double figures. And that played out in the average goals per game. I think was the figure you showed me earlier, was something from 4.7 goals per game, right down to 2.6 or 2.5 last year. And that's because the weaker teams are getting stronger relatively versus the top sides. Yeah, everyone's improving a little bit.
I'll give those weaker sides.
Yeah, go on.
I'll give the stat for the people. I have it here. So last season, it finished at 2.61 goals per game. If you compare that back to 2019, it was 4.75. It's dropped every year. 2020 was 3.64. 2021, 0.63, 3.63, 3.33, 3.8, 3.01. Like, the problem is it could go even lower. And then, but the other side of it, and this is where I think people need to actually look at defenses as well, and it's not as much in say attackers aren't scoring. Like if games aren't low scoring, there's been some games last year that were low scoring, and it was absolutely compelling. The battle, the physicality, and like yes, you're going to get some of these games that might have a couple of a high scoring game, but you're also going to get some of these that are 0-0. Like you look at Shelbourne last year, who finished second in the league, 3-0 all draws. Shamrock Rovers, Wexford, and Sligo Rovers. The Shamrock Rovers game could have been multiple goals. The Wexford game could have been in multiple goals. And it's just defenses are a lot better now than they were. And I've come to the realization that maybe you were a bit right that I can't see someone scoring.
Stop the press. What did you say? I was a bit right. You're not fully committing to I was right. I was a little bit right. Yeah, listen. No, I think we're looking at a really competitive league this year. I think any of probably 8 or 10 teams could be in that top 1 or 2 spots in the season. I think there's probably 3 or 4 sides still a little bit just not quite ready for this level. That we will see struggle a little bit. I think we saw Sligo struggle to pick up a lot of points last year until the last 2 or 3 rounds of games. I think
I've just seen a great question for you now. I'm looking at these stats the more and more I go. There was one team last year who had no goalless draws. Do you know who it was?
Well, it wasn't Shamrock Rovers, it wasn't Sligo, it wasn't Shells, it wasn't DLR because they had a load of them, I think, if memory serves. No goalless draws. I'm going to go with Athlone.
It was Athlone. Treaty United, Shamrock Rovers, Peamount, Galway, and DLR and Cork all had one scoreless draw.
Yeah. No, Athlone just had that kind of bit of grit to just turn those 0-0s into 1-0s last year. It's what won them the league in the end. We are going to have a full show for you today. We've about an hour planned. We're going to be giving our predictions, both of us. We kind of mixed and matched a little bit pre-show, so we kind of know what each other are doing, but there's a little bit of similarities in some of our tables, but we are going to have a few little shockers, I think, for people watching. We do want to hear from you, though. If you're watching this on YouTube or Twitter or Facebook, leave a comment below and we can bring it in and hear maybe what you think. Who's going to win the league this year? Who's going to be the top scorer? Who would make your team of the year? What signing has impressed you the most? Anything you think is going to stand out, players to watch, do drop it in the comments below. We'll bring it in. We'll have a chat about it, see what we think about it as well. But we do have our own ideas on all of that as well. We might start, though, first of all, before we get into signings and fixtures and preview predictions for the season ahead, we might take a quick look back at the game last weekend. Also, one other thing we have to talk about is the retirement of Nicola Sinnott. We couldn't get her on the show today, but we will have her on the show next week. She's going to join us for a bit of a look back at what's been a pretty stellar career since her, I suppose, senior club debut back in, I'm going to say 2006. So we're looking back at the best part of 2 decades. She was featured in that cup final that year for UCD against Mayo League. We won't mention again how that result went. I still have nightmares over it. But Nicola was, remember, that team has been an integral part of the League of Ireland Women's Premier Division since its inception as the WNL back in 2012, I want to say
2011.
So she's been around, and a huge loss to the league and a huge loss to Wexford as well. We'll talk about some of the players that are coming to replace her. But anyway, let's talk a President's Cup last weekend. Shells Athlone, they've met each other on so many big occasions. Cup finals, President's Cup games over the last couple of seasons. They're always tight affairs, with the exception maybe the Cup final last year, where Shells blew Athlone away. Both teams had a little bit to play for at the weekend, Aaron. Shells, despite the best efforts of Athlone's crossbar, Shells did manage to come away with a 2-1 win. Aileen Clancy scrambling a ball across the goal after Roman McLaughlin very unfortunately hit the crossbar twice in about a second and a half. But penalty for Oisin Malloy for Athlone, but it was Shells who won out 2-1 on the day. They've got to be happy with that, get the ball rolling, get a trophy in the bag early on.
Absolutely, and I think the biggest thing about it is it's an opportunity to sort of play. I don't want to say disrespect it, but it's a semi or nearly a competitive game where you haven't had that. Like preseason can be difficult in the sense of you're playing against other teams from different leagues, or you're playing games and you're not necessarily up to pace. It was the first opportunity. Shells haven't won the President's Cup. You have to remember that since its inception. So they haven't actually won. They've only been in the final. This is the second time in the final. Athlone has won the previous 2. So yeah, for Shells, I think when you look around McLaughlin hitting the crossbar a couple of times, corners seem to be and balls into the box seem to be a good passage for Shelbourne. And they got a bit of joy. It was Clancy getting her first goal. I think she's going to be key to them this year. How she plays. I think her along Roma and Evan Clancy together in the middle of the park. I think you look at the Shell squad. Alex Kavanagh being there so long with them. I think it might allow Alex just to sit a little bit deeper and actually just get on the ball, pass the ball, spray it left, spray it right. With Roma and Evan getting forward. You would say in the sense of from Shell's. While they did win it, there was some times in the game where you're looking at it where Athlone sort of cut them apart at the back. The one in particular where Matty Gibson went past 2 or 3 of them to get a cross in, and that's the only little concern when you look at Shells. It's just pace at the back and speed at the back. But from Owen Warren's point of view, listen, it's a first trophy of the year. It's the first they'll all want to win everything, and yeah, it's a good result for them. But if you're at Athlone Town, it's another opportunity to just get a decent workout ahead of the TV game this week. But like I never read a lot into the President's Cup. It's like the Community Shield and Charity Shield in England. You can read into what you want, but I never really take an awful lot from it because it's at the end of the day, it's the last out in the pre-season for me.
Yeah, absolutely. A little bit of a competitive edge, but of course Athlone pretty much a new look squad. A couple of established players in that team. Matty Gibson again back for her, I think 3rd season, if not 4th season at the moment. Roisin Malloy stood out to me. We've talked about her a lot on this show. I think she's one of the best players in the league and really growing into that leadership role in Athlone. I can see her filling a lot of that gap that has been left by Laurie Ryan, who's stepped away from the club this season. So I think Roisin's going to be more and more significant. I thought it was significant that Roisin took the penalty because I would have thought that Madison Gibson would have been on penalties.
Even Groves would have taken. For me, the one thing I looked at when I look at Athlone is it's with Groves captain the team. I'd be interested to see if she's being made captain this year or if it's a potential that Chloe Singleton could take that when she comes back. But I think realistically, like when you look at Athlone, there's so many new faces, so many faces coming in from outside of the league. It's a massive gamble. It's a massive, massive gamble coming into a Champions League, bringing in so many new faces. Like we've seen it from many teams where it hasn't worked, and it hasn't worked at all. For Shells a couple of years ago, yes, they got over the line in the end, but a lot of the foreign-based players didn't necessarily have the impact that they would have wanted, and some of them ended up leaving. We see the amount of times the foreign players come in and leave with midway through the season. I'm really intrigued when I look at Athlone, and like I said to you, Kelly Brady, for me, is somebody who could do really well with them. I think you talked about Matty Gibson. Matty Gibson is Matty Gibson. You know, she's going to be a 7, 8 out of 10 most weeks anyway for a year. And I think if they can get her firing and goals, they'll be okay. I do have a little bit of concern with the amount of players they brought in and brought in from abroad, just gelling and stuff like that. Like I know I've sort of said on this program about players coming in from abroad, and do I necessarily agree with it? I know we were chatting a little bit off air about I sort of said, do we need to have a cap on the amount of players that are coming into leagues? And like when I look at stuff, and I said to you, I'm going to throw you on the spot, and I am going to throw you on the spot now, and I'm going to refer to an Ireland question, because we've seen the under-17s being relegated a couple of times in recent years from the not qualifying for the elites. Like if you look at our previous manager, Eileen Gleeson, how many players did she give a debut to during a campaign? And can you name me any of them?
Well, I know one because you asked me about a specific player beforehand. So Aaron McLaughlin is definitely one.
Nope.
Oh, Aaron McLaughlin got capped earlier on.
McLaughlin made a debut under Vera Powell against Zambia.
Okay, she did, is right. Okay, that's a really good question. Caitlin Hayes played under was the first one. She played against Northern Ireland in that first game under Eileen.
Yeah.
Her defensive partner Anna Patton is 2. And now I'm struggling. Shiva was already in the squad for the World Cup.
Do you want me to tell you how many in total?
It's actually, well, no, don't tell me just yet. I'll continue, guys. I'm just going to talk my way through it, but I think it's a surprisingly short career in the Ireland job when you actually think about it, because she took it after the World Cup, which was mid 2023. We're only early 2025.
This is why my question is quite poignant.
So it's only like 15 months and maybe about 10 or well, no, there was 2 Nations League campaigns. So
she 12 games, 18 games.
I would say it's less than 5.
Yeah.
No goalkeepers, obviously. The 2 I mentioned.
2 you mentioned are correct. I'll
tell you
one
more.
There's one more.
one more. I could be struggling to get this.
And she came in from playing underage with England.
Oh,
up front.
Emily.
Yeah, you're on the right track.
Emily Murphy.
Yeah. So that's the 3 players that have been capped under Eileen Gleeson. There was no National League players capped under Eileen Gleeson. The only players who were sort of brought back into squads, but Jessie Stapleton had already moved. Abby Larkin played a little bit under, but there was nobody actually from the National League or the League of Ireland capped under Eileen Gleeson. You've seen a little bit of, I think it was Ellen Dolan, Jess Fitzgerald.
Julianne Russell was brought in. It was League.
But she wasn't. She was already capped. That's what I'm saying.
Like, but she was brought back in under. To be fair.
But the only thing for me, if you're managing that team, you're bringing Julianne Russell back in if she's available, and it's like for me, that's what I look at, and you talk about the sort of disconnect between the League of Ireland now and the Ireland team. Players are going abroad before they're getting picked. To me, that's where I think maybe we need to look at our home base. That's why I said is maybe having a certain amount of players from abroad good for the league, because there's no doubt we haven't capitalised on the World Cup. We haven't capitalised on pushed on it. I am going to give the FAI a bit of credit though. They do have a coaching opportunity coming up soon where they're going from next month. They're going to bring centralised players into assessments. They're going to bring 14 to 17-year-olds, 250 boys and girls into Abbottstown to have more centralised. And the association, they'll spend 45 days per year with tutors and stuff like that on school holidays and stuff like that, where they're sort of making that impact to try and close that gap. But when you look at it from that viewpoint, the question now is who's the next player from the league to be capped? And at the minute, you don't necessarily see anybody else coming in the way the structures are set out in terms of.
I don't know. I'm a bit more.
I'm not talking about the quality. I'm not talking about the quality. I'm talking about because you see, like Eve Mangan was in squads for 8 or 10 games. Perfect opportunity to get to cap Eve, off a good season and things like that. And like that's where I look back to the last League B campaign where we had no disrespect to the teams who were in the group.
We could have played anybody. Yeah, we could have played
a poor group, and we could have played anybody in one of them games. Whereas now, with the fact of losing to Slovenia last week, Carla Ward is on the back foot. That Carla Ward has to win every game now. So the chances of trying out these players is limited, because if she wins every game now, depending on results, she may finish top of the group. If she finishes top of the group, she goes straight up. If she finishes second, she plays a team who finished third place in League A. And that means then you could get some big teams, and Ireland could be stuck in League B going forward. So I just thought that was interesting when I was doing a bit of digging in terms of the league.
I would be more hopeful. I have 2 or 3 names on my list here in front of me of players to watch this year that I feel are on the fringes of maybe breaking into that. Eva Mangan is one you mentioned. I think Katie Keane is as solid as the goalkeeping situation has been for Ireland. I think Katie Keane is probably the pretender to the crown for Courtney Brosnan, that maybe she could be the one that can get a couple of appearances, or where there's a bit of belief in her. I don't believe that the Ireland management over the last decade really have had full faith in the substitute keepers that have been available. And I'm talking about your Grace Maloney's, your Sophie Whitehouse's, even your Eve Badanas has been in and out of squads. I don't think the management, rightly or wrongly, have had faith in those players. They haven't given the opportunity.
I was doing a bit of digging because I was sitting with friends in Slovenia last week, and one of the things we love to do is, because little Annie, she's 10 this year, she's always says to me, ask me questions about Ireland. And we were doing some digging and we were researching and looking at stuff. I think since Courtney Brosnan made her debut in March 2020, I think there's only been 2 or 3 games, but max 4 games that she hasn't played in.
Yeah. So
that'll sort of show you, to back up your point there. Grace Maloney's played in 2 of them. Sophie Whitehouse has played in 1 of them. I think that's it.
I don't think Sophie Whitehouse is a cap.
Megan White.
Yeah, Sophie Whitehouse doesn't have a cap.
So
I think 3 is the. I think the 3 is the max, and that's worrying. And it's not good for squad depth, because if Courtney Brosnan gets a serious injury or is unavailable for suspension or whatever, and these things happen, like red cards happen all the time. And if she got picked up an accidental red card somewhere in this campaign, we could be in trouble for having someone of quality to replace her with experience.
Or 2 yellow cards with time wasting like she got in the last campaign.
Yeah, and it does happen. Let's move on a little bit rather than getting focused on the international stuff at the moment, because today is all about.
I can't wait, because I have the squads in front of me. I'm using 2 screens tonight. The squads in front of me, and I'm just constantly flicking through them.
how do you want to do this? Do you want to do it on alphabetical order? Do you want to maybe we look at what teams we reckon we might work from the bottom up and kind of save the league champions for the end of the show? Will we start?
You tell me. I'm happy to go.
We'll work up what we think our league table is going to be, and we're going to get absolutely hammered for this. I welcome it, but humble pie is already in the oven. I'm looking forward to eating it over the next couple of months. And I'm sure.
Just remember, 2 years ago, I predicted Galway United to finish bottom of the league, or Galway WRC to finish bottom of the league under Phil Trill in the first season that they had. Just remember that. Phil has given me a bit of stick before. You've given me a bit of stick before. We're all human.
Yeah. Well, the one thing I can say is we don't have Galway at bottom spot in the league this season. Let's start together. We'll say our 12th place team at the same time, and we might be matching, we might not, but we'll go through them as we go. So, 3, 2, 1, Sligo.
Yeah, I agree with you.
You didn't say it though. You let me hang out there. I think Sligo will struggle. Go on.
I think, and I'm going to say this now, right? And when we say this, it's not a reflection to say that the players aren't good enough. It's just a fact of the players that are necessarily available or the experience that some of the other teams have had. And that's why when we talk about this, why I've ranked certain teams higher than others, because of the players they have in terms of experience and how much. Like, I really like a lot of these Sligo players. For me, when I look at this squad, if Leah Kelly stays fit, Leah Kelly's vital. Keelan Scanlon, Kiva Flynn, like, I'm not sure how fit Emma Hansby will be this year or how many games she'll get in them. Miriam Devaney is probably one of the crucial players. Like, there's very good players in this Sligo Rovers team. I'm expecting a lot from Amber Hardy again. I think Amber Hardy is somebody who is vital to Sligo Rovers. And like, for the people listening, you have to remember, like, look at the way they finished last season off the back of a run of very, very poor results. I do expect them to take a step on this year. There's no doubt about it. And like, when we talk about the teams who finished from bottom to, say, 8th, on their day, all of them are capable of beating each other and they're capable of chopping and changing.
I agree with you on that, but I also think that, like, you look at some of the results that Sligo had last year, they're capable of taking points off Shells or Shamrock Rovers or Pima. Like, any team can beat anybody in this division. I mirror what you're saying in terms of the quality and the squad depth is probably just not quite there for Sligo at the moment. I think the Tommy Hewitt experiment last year didn't work. It'd be interesting to see what Steve Feeney brings coming back into the spot. Maybe a breakout of the game might be have done him the world of good as well in terms of maybe his. I think it just got stale towards the end of his time. So maybe that little bit of re-energy back in, fresh voices. I know Enda Scanlon, former Sligo player.
Who's linked on his coaching? Who's on his coaching ticket?
Enda Scanlon, who is a former player with Sligo Rovers.
Who else is listed on the coaching staff?
Oh, I'd have to open it up now. I can't remember.
Orna O'Dowd.
Oh, I did see that. Yeah, of course, former centre half.
It's a good someone who's played for the club. She'll probably be a vital link this year between management and players as well, and that could help as well. Like, having people familiar around to the squad as well, and like, realistically, they could come out and win their first game of the season. Come out and win a couple of games early on, and I wouldn't be shocked either. That's the thing about it, and I don't think we'll be talking after 6, 7, 8 games saying Sligo haven't won a game, Sligo are struggling for a win. Because realistically, I think there's a chance of them picking up results early on in the season, and sort of, like, I wouldn't be surprised if they win one of their first 3 games.
They need to be better than last year. They need to be better than last year because last year, if they start this season like they ended last year, they could be in the shake-up for mid-table, comfortably be in the position for mid-table, and they have the players if everybody's available. But the problem with Sligo is that they need everybody available just because they don't have that strength of depth of experience of players through the whole system. So it'll be interesting to see how they pan out over the next few months, and we watch this space, but hopefully they get off to a better start. Let's go to 11th spot on the table. This time I'm going to let you go first, and I'll see if I agree with you. So whenever you want to tell me who your 11th place team is.
I'm flip-flopping here. I'm really flip-flopping. Currently have Cork City in there, but I'm flip-flopping them and Waterford.
Okay, let's take them together because I have them in that order as well. Cork 11th, Waterford 10th.
So for Cork, I just think the biggest thing with Cork over the last couple of years is you get a good result, you fail to back it up. You put in a good 45 minutes. There's no 50, 60, 70 minutes. And that's sort of what's taking them out of certain games at stages last year. I think keeping hold of Kennedy O'Connell is a good sign, and the striker Doherty up top, I think is a good one to keep hold of. They've kept hold of quite a good few of them younger players. Bringing in Lauren Holman be interesting. She hasn't really played for Cork since she was younger. Gone off playing Camogie. Fianna Bradley back in as well. Like I think on paper they've a decent squad. I just wonder how they're going to settle, because we heard some of the off the field stuff last year in terms of they've now added in things like expenses for players. So I do think there's a bit of pressure on them to deliver and deliver early in the season because of the fact that they've now got performance bonuses and stuff like that in place. But like, if I look at that squad, for me, the players who stand out, Niamh Cotter, absolutely smashing centre half, and rightly so, was getting a lot of recognition last year. I just think from Cork, they need to maybe stop the conceding. When they concede one, they sometimes concede 2, 3, 4. If they can stop that, they can be in a lot of the games. Like we've seen them beating Bows last year. We've seen them on the telly, the way they put in some really good performances. I'm just not sure if they're there or thereabouts where they need to be right now. But I do think Frank Kelleher is a really, really good appointment to sort of help bridge that gap. Frank obviously there when they won the FAI Cup a couple of years ago in the Aviva Stadium, and I think it's a decent squad. It's just can they learn from the experiences that they would have built on last year is the question.
Who's in goals for them this year? We've seen a lot of chopping and changing. Maria O'Sullivan's been in there, Abby McCarthy's been in there, and now we see Una Foyle and Clodagh Fitzgerald competing for that jersey. Does Fitzgerald take that nod on experience, or will we see the Australian take the jersey?
Oh, I don't know, is the honest question. I would expect to see Foyle probably start and go. I really like Fitzgerald. When she started making her debut at 16, I think she's quite astute in terms of with her feet as well. I'm not sure. I think Foyle will probably get the jersey, if I'm being honest.
Okay, Fianna Bradley back in that squad as well. We're number 2, funny enough. I don't think she'll be playing right back, but she moves back from Waterford underage after a little bit of a detour through Limerick. She's been one that kind of has been, I suppose, Treaty made a bit of a big deal out of signing her back in the day. She's been an underage international, Kerry native, of course. I don't know whether it's because maybe changing man in the dugout has allowed her that freedom to go back to Cork or not, or whether it's just a personal choice. I did expect to see her in Waterford, so it's a little bit of a surprise to see her back there.
I thought if Lawton had been involved with Waterford, she would have went to Waterford. I'm not surprised to see Frank Kelleher reach out. I'm going to say this now when it comes to someone like Fianna. I just think Fianna at this stage needs a manager who's going to put an arm around the shoulder and say, okay, if it doesn't go well for you at this stage, let's go again. There's no doubt there's a lot of talent there. There's probably a little bit of pressure on her because of we've seen Vera Powell hyping her up a couple of years ago as well and talking about her. And it hasn't maybe worked out the way she would have wanted. Do I think she can do it and deliver for Cork City? Yes, absolutely. I think Frank is a good man manager. I think Frank will put an arm around the shoulder. I wouldn't be surprised to see her playing some under-7, under-19s games early on to maybe get a bit of confidence as well. But I think she can do well for Cork. I'm hopeful she'll do well for Cork.
Of course, Eva Mangan, we've mentioned her in the international discussion earlier. She'll be a big part of that Cork City team this year. Jessie Mendez as well in that midfield with her. Interesting times to see if they can push on. We both have them at 11th, but wouldn't be surprised to see them another spot or 2 further up the league.
I wouldn't be surprised to see them 9th. I wouldn't be surprised to see them 8th. They could finish anywhere from 8th to 12th for me.
Yeah. The other one we mentioned, the new girls in the squad is Waterford. Here's their squad. A lot of familiar names to fans of the league. Maeve Williams, of course, she brings a host of experience between the sticks for Wexford. She'll be in goal for them, I would imagine. But also some other names in there as well. Danielle Griffin, Jessica Lawler, Lauren Walsh, Danielle Burke, Lauren Bonlu, Mia Lenhan, Megan Carr. They've all got senior experience.
A little bit of you talked about Fianna Bradley wearing 2.
Yeah.
Jess Lawler wearing 3 to me just doesn't. Doesn't
Yeah, it's
sit
a
well.
strange one.
Jess Lawler would probably be most known in the League of Ireland for scoring against Shelbourne and Talca Park in a massive game for Wexford. I think she is somebody who I'm really excited to see what she does this year. A couple of them, the likes of herself, Mia Lennon, a couple of them sort of took that gamble last summer to go to Waterford and play that underage. I think there's some really good players in this team. The most important player in this team for me is Maeve Williams.
Yeah.
I think Maeve's had a bit of probably a frustrating last 18 months. It hasn't necessarily worked out after being number one in Wexford to start getting displaced. I think Williams has a point to prove. Do I think Williams is top 5 goalkeeper in the top 6 goalkeeper in the league on her day? Absolutely, she can be. I'm really intrigued to see how Zara Corcoran does stepping up. I think there's some really good players in this squad, and for me, like these will take. I don't mean to be bad when I say this for Waterford. These could take a while to get going. I think Waterford after 6-7 games is where we could probably see them getting to a stage of winning several games. But I do think the quality is there once they do click to get some results.
They may get that new team bounce as well. We saw it with Sligo 3 seasons ago when they came into the league, where they went on a streak of maybe I think it was 15 or 16 points in the first 8 or 10 games. So and then they struggled from there pretty much.
The manager's key. The manager's key. The thing is, and when we see with a lot of clubs coming into a league, and you see him with Sligo, Steve necessarily didn't have a lot of League of Ireland top level experience. Where Gary Hunt has been involved with Wexford youths, he was involved with them when they were winning leagues. He was involved with them at the likes of Will Doyle. Like, you know, he's been involved with these sort of teams, and I think he's a key appointment, and it's somebody who knows the women's game. Yes, he's been out of it for a couple of years, but he knows the women's game.
Yeah, 100%. Let's move on. We're looking now at 9th place. Where are we going for 9th place? I think it's my turn to shout this one. I'm staying in Munster, and I'm saying Treaty United will be 9th at the table at the end of the year. This one, we mentioned it last week, and people were kind of asking us on socials whether we were going to give Athlone the same criticism the Treaty got last year for the foreigners. Treaty have gone down that route again. A lot of foreign names in this list. Finnish goalkeeper coming in there, in Lisa Toomey. Sounds like a good Limerick name, but it's not. But there's a few other players. Madison McGran is a very exciting under-17 international that's come through the club in the last few years. Kato Dunman has a lot of experience from Cork. Maybe not going to be one of the standout players who play every minute, but a really, really good player with a lot of experience from Cork.
They have a lot of homegrown players here as well, and I think that's what I think. If you look at Treaty last year, Treaty would have liked to have this sort of more homegrown last year, if they could have. And as Kieran McCormick said, players just weren't willing to sort of buy into the Treaty vision. I think a lot of these players will have benefited from that year's experience. When I look at Treaty, I think for me, when you look at that side, Grace McInerney, Madison Maguire's a name on everybody's lips. Katie Lawley, like I think Lawley got a lot of credits last year, and rightly so, rightly deserved. I think when you look at Treaty, they probably should have had more results than they did last year. I would question whether, you know, things in terms of the camp and the setup was correct. Sean Russell seems to be highly regarded this year. It's somebody who a lot of people talk really highly of in terms of the women's game, and even in terms of coaching ability. He's brought in Irene Hare, who was there the first year with Dave Riveney as well, and has been in and around Limerick football. So there's people there with a lot of experience and a lot of women's knowledge. And do you know what? I think Treaty will take a step on this year. Likewise, I think Cork, when I say Cork and Sligo, will take a step on as well. I think Treaty will take a step on this year, and I wouldn't be surprised if they finish there or thereabouts with maybe a slightly higher points than they got last year. I just think we got some good results from Treaty. Then they were only losing against the top sides, and then they sort of went off the boil a little bit. And I think for Sean, his biggest thing is, can he get a bit of consistency going this year? If he can get consistency going, he could easily be ahead of DLR, and he could be challenging 7th place for me. He could be challenging 6th place if he can get that consistency going throughout the season.
In terms of the key signings for Treaty, how important is it that the goalkeeper hits the ground running? Because new goalkeepers come into this league. They've just lost Annie Uliak. She was here for a couple of seasons and probably was, let's be honest, 2 seasons ago was the main reason for their their jump from absolute no hopers to competitive team. Is this a step forward? This girl is underage caps for Finland. Are we looking again at her coming in, making a big impact, and giving them that opportunity to get more clean sheets and lose less games, maybe?
I don't think Katie Irvine is gonna lie down in terms of the goalkeeping selection either. I think Katie Irvine was probably a little bit lucky last year when you see at one stage, I think they lost Irvine in one game. The very next game they lost Uliak as well through injury. And I think young, not necessarily young, I think she's 24, 25. I think Katie Irvine's not a bad goalkeeper. I think goalkeeping got in the goalkeeping department. I think Treaty are okay this year. I think they have recruited well in the goalkeeping department, and it's just more of a case of, can they keep the defense on top? Can they build on what they've done last year? And I think it'll be interesting to see what way Sean Russell sort of sets his team out. They had a good result in their last preseason game against Cork City, and it'll be interesting to see how Sean sort of sets that team out this year to what way they want to play.
Okay, next position, 8th place on the table. Who have you got?
I'm going to let you go because I think we've got the same one here, because you're going to want my number 7. My number 7 is going to cause a lot of things.
Okay, so you're going to cause the controversy and all the social media storm in a minute. I'm going number 8, DLR Waves. Yeah, so DLR, we look at their squad list for this year. Again, a lot of familiarity here. A new name to me in the number 1 jersey, Pia Madden, Noel Rugale, Athlone, I can't say her name. You know who I'm talking about. That's the one. But Eve Badan, of course, in there in her traditional 18. So
was Regala not initially announced?
I thought so, but she's not in the squad list.
She was initially announced. So I'll follow up with Laura and check into that. But I'd still expect Eve Bandana to be in goal for them. The one thing I will say is, I don't mean to be I don't like criticizing goalkeeping. I think the goalkeeping last year for DLO has probably cost them some points in some games. Yeah. I think if you look at that squad there, the youngsters would definitely have learned. I still think Chloe McCarthy could be a smashing player in this league. Rebecca McMahon, very good player. Aisling Meehan, Daryl Garrity raves about her. He's always talking about her. Like, they've got some really, really good players there. Abby Brophy on her day can be very, very good. Like, experience is probably something that DLR have lacked in years, where they've made silly mistakes or stupid mistakes in games where you'll talk to Laura after the game, or you talk to some of the players and they're like, yeah, we know we could have done that. I think Nadine Clare going back there is interesting. For me, I just want to see, I think Nadine Clare with Shelbourne, it didn't work. I understand totally why she went there. The opportunity to go and play for Shelbourne, absolutely, I get it. I think at the likes of DLR Waves, she's going to play week in, week out. She's going to be really, really good for them. I'm expecting. Do
you put Michelle Doonan in that same category in terms of coming back from Piedmont? Will she make an impact? How many goals does she need to say the season's success for her at DLR this season?
Michelle Doonan is the most intriguing forward in this league. A lot of potential, a lot of ability. I think now she's at a stage that she has to deliver. If she's not getting close to double digits this year, you're probably going to say it's a really, really bad year for her. I think if DLR are to push up the table, they're going to need people to find the net. They're going to need regular goal scorers. I think when you look at her, it's difficult, and you don't want to say going when she went to Piedmont, it didn't necessarily work. It didn't necessarily work the way she would have wanted. You have to look at the sort of players that Piedmont brought through into the first team at that stage. But I'm not convinced. I hope Laura can.
Where are the goals coming from this list for DLR to push them up that table?
That's the question. That is the concern for me. I think you can probably see Abby Brophy in the wing can chip in with a few. Rachel Doyle from long range. I think Jess Gleeson is going to come up with some from defence in terms of set plays. I think set plays are probably going to be one of their keys for goals, and they need to find an alternative way that it can't be reliant on, say, set plays or long range efforts.
Okay, we move on to number 8. So that's DLR in 8th place. Number 7 on the league table. Do we say it at the same time, and then we'll work out where we're going?
I'll go because I know you don't have them.
Okay.
I've got Shamrock Rovers in 7th.
Oh wow. Okay, you're really going for the jugular here. Shamrock Rovers. Tell me why Shamrock Rovers are going to finish in 7th.
I just think Rovers, and this isn't a bad thing. I really wish Collie
might disagree with you.
A year ago.
Okay.
In the sense of, I don't think it's a bad thing in this, what I'm going to say. They focus a lot on youth. It's not a bad thing. I think they've some absolutely smashing young footballers. But my question is, when they've lost the likes of You lost Leo O'Leary, you've lost Aoife Kelly, Savannah McCarthy's not in that squad either. They've lost some players, but they have some really good players. But my just concern is they might have a core eight or nine players who will probably play every game. It's just fitting that extra couple in for me. I just think I know you're going to say, oh, I'm going to say this, Stefania O'Gorman there. I just think they lack experience in terms of winning big games with that squad that they have. That for me is a bit of a concern.
I'm going to offer you a counterpoint to this, and I'm not saying I disagree with anything you've just said, but like you've got the top scorer in the league from 2 or 3 years ago in Emily Corbett. You've Anya O'Gorman, who's been to the World Cup, one of Ireland's most experienced players. You've got Katie Keane, one of the most exciting goalkeeping talents in the country. On top of most of what was there already, your Melissa O'Kane's, your Joy Ralphs, your Scarlett Herons, and plenty of others. Maria Reynolds, another exciting young international player coming through the ranks. And there's others names there too. Like 7th, really?
Yeah. So if you look at Shamrock Rovers last year, in 20 games last year, they won 6 games. They drew 9 games of football. I'm not going to say the Shamrock Rovers are going to lose a lot of games of football, but I wouldn't be surprised to see them drawing a lot of games of football. I think if Collie O'Neill can get this youthful team playing the way he wants to play, the second half of the season, I can see them going on a run. But I do have a bit of a fear that they could have a slow start to the season, like maybe what they had the start of last year. That is my concern, is that they could go on that sort of run. Like if you look at midfield, like last year, the one thing I cried out to you in terms of Shamrock Rovers is I felt they were lacking experience in the middle of the park. Yeah. They've now lost one of their linchpins in the middle. And Aoife Kelly going to Wexford. Massive loss for me. And I don't think that's probably stated the extent of it. Do I think Joy Ralph can score goals and Emily Corbett can score goals on their day? Yes, absolutely. I think Maria Reynolds is a rock at the back, but you also look at the defence. The defence is missed. No Shauna Fox, no Savannah McCarthy. Yet they've lost Jessica Hennessy's gone as well.
Steph Roach is retired.
So it's a lot of experience and a lot of players with a lot of things gone out of that squad. I think it's a massive job for Collie O'Neill, and I think what we've seen what he's done at UCD, I think he can do it again, and I think he can sort of do all that stuff again. But I just think it's going to take a bit of time, and I do think for someone who's capable of building teams and knows how to build young players, I think Collie can do it. But I just think it's going to take a bit of time for Shamrock Rovers this year.
One name on that list, Jamie Thompson, probably a player neither of us expected to see in the Rover squad this year, for various reasons, but started just burst onto the scene with a load of goals in a very short space of time. A couple of years back in the inaugural season, it hasn't really happened for her last season. Does this make or break for her?
She come up against Chloe Maloney and Jetta Barrell at Peamount that first season, and the two girls sort of bullied her a little bit on the park. That was the start of that little bit of a downward spiral. Sort of hasn't necessarily adapted to the league, because yes, she has a lot of quality, but it's a sort of this sort of league as well, is you have to have something else as well. She is very capable footballer, and I think if Collie can sort of get her to where he wants her to be, she can be so effective in this team. Do I think she's going to be really important in this team this year? Absolutely. The one name I do really like on this team, I'm a massive fan of Scarlett Heron. I think Scarlett Heron is a very, very good footballer. I think the way she does analysis as well off the field is brilliant. I think her work in terms of Ireland games and doing analysis is very good. I think she's somebody who I would expect to be a linchpin for Shamrock Rovers this year. But to me, if Shamrock Rovers are to finish above 7th, I think either Emily Corbett or Joy Ralph have to score 15 goals this year, or between them they need to score 20 goals.
Is that possible?
Yes.
Okay. Some positives that we won't get kicked out of top.
I really like this Rovers team in terms of the way it's set up. I really like it. I just think they're like a couple of other teams where maybe they just need that year of experience. A lot of these players need to be playing. Like you look at that side, Katie O'Reilly, young. Ella Kelly, very young, smashing footballer. You look at Maria Reynolds, what experience. Maria Reynolds probably played 20, maybe 19, 20 League of Ireland games. Yeah. She's going to be, alongside Anya O'Gorman, she's going to be expected to be a leader in that team. Now, I'm going to give Shamrock Rovers a lot of credit on something here. Some of these players have signed multi-year contracts with Shamrock Rovers. Brilliant. think that's the sort of thing where we see that them actually saying, okay, we're going to commit to growing you in the next couple of years. I wouldn't be surprised, and you've said it earlier, if Katie Keane is in the Ireland squad. I think Katie Keane is going to be vital for them in terms of keeping clean sheets. I just see the team as a whole in certain areas lacks experience, but I think they will get that experience, and I think they will be much better for the second half of the season.
I think a team with Katie Keane in it is higher than 7th. That's all I'm saying. I have them 5th on my league table. We might take my 7th place team now. I'd be interested to hear where you have them in yours. I've plumped for the other side of the Dublin Derby, Bohemians, for 7th place. I'm a bit dubious with some of the signings that have come in. They've brought in a lot of youngsters, particularly from Shells. I think there's a quartet of players that have come in from Shells. Ava Brennan, to me, is the most exciting young player in the league. I'm really excited to see if she pushes on. She was nearly ever present last season at 16 years of age. That's unheard of at this level. So vital to what they do. The player pictured, Sarah McKevitt, as always, match winner when she's on form. Maybe a little bit too. Maybe it's great. Maybe a little bit too inconsistent at times. But I think if she can get that consistency and keep that high standard that she's got on a regular basis, Bows could finish much higher than 7th. But as I see it, that's kind of where I think they're going to end up. Some really exciting youngsters coming through. And then some reliable names like Mia Dodd. We know what Mia provides at this level in the league. Other players there as well. Alana McAvoy, she's been around the league at this stage. She knows where the back of the net is. Katie Malone, the same. Fiona Donnelly, solid as always. Good playmaker in midfield for whatever team she's playing with. And Lisa Murphy, a rock at the back. And Rachel Kelly on her day, one of the best goalkeepers in the league. Did she have a great year last year? I think she probably admit herself she probably didn't have her best season. But I think Bows should be better than this.
Mm-hmm.
The chopping and changing of managers in recent years probably doesn't help because they'd started to look really positive next year or last year. It'll be interesting to see how it happens this year. I'm really impressed by Alban Heise. We've spoken to him and about him on the show over the last 2 seasons. What he did at Limerick was phenomenal, in my opinion. If he has the same impact at Bows, they could really be challenging for 2nd or 3rd in the league this year. It'll take everybody playing every game 8 or 9 out of 10 for that to happen. Do I see it happening with Bows? Possibly not.
So you want to know where I have Bows ranked?
Yeah, go on.
I have them in 6th.
Okay.
I think there's a lot of pressure on Alban Heise this year.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of pressure on this squad this year as a whole. I think there's a lot of pressure on Bows as a massive whole. Sorry if you can hear the dog.
The dog is fine.
I think there's pressure on these because, no disrespect to Bows, but they've threatened and threatened and threatened, but they haven't actually been able to deliver on what they've been capable of doing. Do they have the individual players there to finish 6th? Yes. But my concern as well is if they don't get the results early. I think Roisin McGovern for me is a smashing sign at centre back. I think Roisin coming back in from America, having played college football in America, is very, very good. But you look at this team, Emma Cochran made her debut last year, young Ava Fleming, Leah Riley probably didn't necessarily feature the way she would have wanted since coming in from Shells. Mia Dodd for me, and I don't mean to sound bad when I say this, and we said this about Nadine Clare, Mia Dodd going back to Shells was the worst decision she could have made. She was flying with Boas when she was with them, and then obviously her heart was twisted considering she's been with Shells before to sort of come back and give that a try. I'm glad to see she got out there to go and play regular football. She is going to be the player for me alongside Fiona Donnelly that's going to have to run that Bows midfield. Hannah Healy has a lot of pressure. Didn't work last year for Hannah at Shells. She tried to do something new. There's definitely a lot of talent in this squad. I do think, and the reason why I put them just ahead of Shamrock Rovers is I just think that on their day, this squad can get results. And I think Alban Heise has a point to prove this year. And you said he done well with Treaty, but I just think this squad is better than what he had at Treaty. And I think he can get results with this squad. And I think he can beat the big teams on their day. I wouldn't be surprised if Bows finish 8th. I wouldn't be surprised if Bows finish 4th. That's the way I look at it on their day this year. I think they're capable of beating everybody on their day. It's going to have to be hit the ground running. They can't go on a run of bad defeats because that'll then massively derail them, and then they could easily end up down in 10th.
Yeah, one player whose name we didn't mention was at Treaty with Alban Heise, of course. Sarah Power took a bit of an injury in the middle of last season that affected her season, but otherwise she was one of Bows' best players, I felt, last year.
Against
on this year.
Shells,
Palestine, I think she got injured
on the game against Shells on the game on telly. absolutely superb.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely
Okay,
superb.
that's your 7th place. My 7th place. Who's next on your table? Because
I would have Peamount in 5th.
I think we haven't got to 6th yet. I have Wexford in
And
6th.
your 6th, so your 6th is...
My 6th is Wexford, so let's go there. Wexford...
I have them higher.
Okay, that's fine. Some big ins and outs for Wexford here. We'll start with the keepers. Maria Sullivan's on that list there. Obviously, they've lost a load of players in goals. Maeve Williams gone to Waterford. Summer Lawless has gone to...
No, you're taking Nicole Nix.
Sorry, Nicole Nix has gone to Galway.
The goalkeepers are lost. Marin, Nix, and Williams.
Yeah, so 3 keepers out and 2 or 3 keepers in as well. Of course, Rihanna Jarrett, congratulations, big news. I saw on her social media this week. She has tied the knot, so congratulations to her and to her partner. The very best of luck to them as they move into a new stage of life. But she's in this squad as well. We're going to see lots of her this season. I wonder if she'll be available at the weekend or if she's on honeymoon. But it wouldn't be like a League of Ireland footballer to not take the honeymoon during the season. But plenty of action for her to come later in the season. No Nicola Sinnott. We mentioned at the top of the show a bit of a kind of a stalwart or an institution in this club. It's a big move for her. She follows kind of a couple of other big retirements from Wexford over the last 12 months. It's
yeah.
Now she didn't really feature every week with Wexford last year. She wasn't playing 90 minutes every week. Aoife Kelly comes in. She provides that bit of defensive stability, maybe from midfield, but there's plenty of talent in this squad, and they could do really, really well. Your thoughts on it?
I have them at 3.
Okay.
And this management ticket for me have a point to prove. Okay? This management ticket for me have a point to prove, and I think they've got a squad where they can go and prove that point. I think if you look at that squad, Della Doherty struggled for injuries last 18 months. Lauren Dwyer has had a nightmare. I'd be interested to see if they have been on the phone to Dave Conlon very much and where they play Aoife Kelly. I wouldn't be entirely shocked if Aoife Kelly at times starts at centre back as much as she starts in the midfield for them. I think the signing of Aoife Kelly is absolutely massive. Young Liam McGrath for me takes the 9 jersey this year. Very, very, very exciting young kids. Ellen Malloy coming back. Ellen Malloy is Ellen Malloy. I think Ellen's going to want to get back into that Ireland squad. I think Aoife Kelly could be in the Ireland squad within the next 12 months. The signing that's probably slipped under the radar a little bit is Becky Casson coming back in from Cork, having spent a couple of years away as well.
Freda Mange is back in that squad as well. She was earmarked as a really exciting prospect a couple of years ago. In fact, on our very first show here 4 years ago this week, her teammate picked her as the one to watch. She's come back to the club this year. She could have an impact as well.
When she left in the summer, in the sense of she'd scored the week before in the All-Ireland Cup and then all of a sudden rocked up in Cork. So I don't know whether that was just a disagreement with the previous manager. Young Millie Daly has been someone who's been chomping in my ear for quite a while, has a lot of potential. I think these have a lot of potential. I think they're gonna be difficult to beat. I don't see them winning every game. I think probably having them on my list ahead of Peamount and Athlone is probably a little bit high of them. If I'm looking at it, maybe that's just me letting the head overrule the heart, and the heart overrule the head in the sense of I'm really fond of that management ticket. I think that management ticket could do well with this group, but I think I do expect them to. I expect to see a lot out of them this week. This week is going to tell us an awful lot. I know it's the first week of the season, but how they shape up against Athlone on TG Car for me is going to tell us an awful lot about where they are. But I really think they could be a very, very good team this year.
Okay, what's the first team from the bottom up that you haven't spoken about yet? Where are we?
It's a good question.
I'm at 5.
We haven't spoke Peamount, Athlone, Galway, and Shells, I think.
Okay, so that's my top 4. Your top 4, obviously, as well. Oh no, you have Wexford in there. Who's 5th on your list?
Peamount.
Let's go there. They're number 3 on my list, but let's see where you think of it.
I'll tell
James
you what.
Callan obviously gone. James Callan's gone this year. A new look in the change. Well, not quite new look in the dugout, but Emma O'Donoghue's in there as well as the new manager of the team. A lot of familiar faces. A couple of outs, namely, I suppose, the goalkeeping, all the Neves have gone. Neve Coombs, Neve Richardson, and Neve Reed Burke have all retired. Amanda Budden comes in, a wealth of experience in goals. Sorry, I'm focusing on the keepers first, but the rest of the squad is fairly, I suppose, what we would have noticed over the last couple of years. Mary Phillips comes in from Athlone there as well. Amy Mahan comes in from Athlone.
Abby Total's a very good sign.
Of course, great player.
For me, I just think Peamount's season relies on how good Slife Doyle is. And I don't like putting on one player because we see when Slife Doyle wasn't in that team how much of a loss she was last year. I don't think necessarily some of the younger players probably had their best years compared to the year before when they really broke onto the scene. But that goes back to what we said about Fiona Bradley when she initially broke onto the scene, how she was very, very good. And then all of a sudden it sort of dipped off. I think the younger players need to sort of find that groove, find that sort of their niche in that sort of sense. Erin McLaughlin obviously left them midway through last season. But for me, I'm just not sure where Peamount are going to be. A lot of good names there. But then you look at players like Dora Gorman, Lucy McCartan, haven't played football quite very much in quite a long time. I think Ashlyn Splan's not a bad footballer. There's some really good footballers. But the problem with Peamount last year, and I think this could be the case, it's a lot of youngsters where they only necessarily use the regular, say, 9-10 players and then the same 3-4 subs. And when injuries happen with Peamount, Peamount got decimated last year, and you'd have that concern if they pick up injuries. Are they capable of finishing that top 3 on their day? Absolutely, yes. I just think I'm just not sure this year with Peamount.
Yeah, interesting times ahead for them. I think it's going to be a big year for them. Personally, I have them in third place on my table. I think there's so much experience in that squad. The only question mark I have is how many of them are involved with Gaelic football. Derval Byrne is back playing regularly with Leitrim this season. Lucy McCartan featured with Westmeath over the last few years. Chloe Maloney with Clare. Is that going to change? Probably not. So the chances of injury slightly higher. The chances of, just because of the intensity of what they're doing outside of Peamount. So if they lose a player or two, we saw in the stats you mentioned, one of those stats that I spotted when I was going through it earlier before the show was the number of substitutions that were made in games last year, where Shells had 90 substitutions. Now in 18 league games, that's 5 in every single game, so that's the max. Peamount only had 48, so an average of 2 or 3 a game. It's because they don't have the squad depth. If they keep everyone fit and everyone's available and everyone performs, I think they'll be in the hunt. They could even challenge for the title, in my opinion.
They were also second on the most points won from behind last year, so which means they finished games very well. They didn't start the games very well. I think this year they're going to have to start games very well. They're going to have to sort of be in that sort of frame. Like I just think like Peamount could be. I hate to say it, but Peamount could be anything this year. Like,
yeah.
Are they going to have to play Chloe Maloney? Not Chloe Maloney. Are they going to have to play Karen Duggan at centre back? Take her out of midfield. If Slife Doyle is fit, you can get away with it. But Karen, to me, has her best impact for Peamount when she's in midfield rather than defence. She'll do your job in centre back, but she's not your go-to centre half for me.
Don't forget the one name missing off that list that really could be a huge loss for them over the last 18 months or so is Jetta Barrow. Hugely invigorating as a centre half for them.
She left them midway through last season to go abroad, so I don't see her being involved this year.
Yeah, I don't think so either. Okay, that is top. We're down to the top 3, I think. I have Athlone in 4th place. So we might go to Athlone.
I actually have Athlone in 4th myself.
Okay, so we're level on this one. Athlone, here's the squad list. Of course, load of foreign imports into this team this year. We've spoken about some of them. Izzy Groves is the captain designate for this year, we think. Obviously, Chloe Singleton may take that armband if she comes back from injury or when she comes back from injury. You talk about Kelly Brady being impressive. I think Roisin Malloy is one of the key players in the league. Madison Gibson needs absolutely no introduction to anyone in the league. But when you go down from 1 to that whole left-hand side of that list in front of me, like quality throughout. And even some of the girls on the right-hand side, like Hazel Donegan has been around for a while. Erica Cunningham comes in from the States. She could have a big impact as well. It's a very solid team from Athlone. I'm just not sure if they're going to gel. Of course, they have a new manager in Athlone as well, or joint managers really between Conor Fortune and Gordon Brett. It's going to be see how they get on. Gordon comes with a wealth of experience locally. He's obviously the head of sport in ATU as well. He's been in charge of the men's team. Conor Fortune, I stand corrected, but I think he's been involved with the men's team, possibly as a coach, if not as the manager. They're embedded in that culture in Athlone. They're local. They know the club. They have the potential to do what they did last year, but I think the loss of Katie Keane is going to be huge. That being said, super impressed with Megan Plashko in goals. And not for the goal. That was. She's not going to want to watch that highlight back. But some of the saves she pulled off in the President's Cup of the weekend, if she can do that on a consistent basis regularly, Athlone will finish higher than the fourth. They've
also lost Brenda Tabay, Jessie Rossman as well. My concern is gelling with the amount of foreign-based players that have come into. If these foreign-based players don't necessarily play week in, week out, are they content to sit and be in a foreign country where it's not necessarily working out for them? That's my concern, and that's the concern that I've had with a lot of them in the league over the last year. Like, you look at that side, when you think about it, like the Hazel Donegan, Ciara O'Neill's, players who were involved in that under-19s team that won the league. There's really, really good players, and I'm not mentioning Roisin Malloy on purpose, because I think nearly every week last season I constantly Roisin Malloy this, Roisin Malloy that. The good news for me, and I don't know how far away she is that Chloe Singleton. I seen a video of her running on the pitch in Talca Park last week, doing some running on the sideline pre-game. So hopefully she's not too far away. I think that realistically for Athlone, Kaylee Shine and Shauna Brennan are going to be absolutely vital for them in defence. I'm just not sure if they will gel, but if they hit their potential of some of the players that they have, they could easily challenge for that title. I 100% agree with you, but I'm just not sure if they will.
Now, I have a bit of a secret to tell you. I've been in receipt of some information since we started the show that has made me change my top two.
Okay.
So I did have Galway top, but that was based. That was. I know you don't. I don't anymore. But I did have Galway top, and the reason for that was I saw a name that's gone under the radar on their squad list today. That immediately I said, "Oh, she's played for them."
Have we missed that? Just before we talk about it, have we missed anybody?
We've Shells and Galway the top two on my list.
Grant, so
I think that's who we've got to do. I'm putting Shells top because of, I think there's a couple of bits of information I got about Galway in the last hour or so that basically means I don't think they'll quite get across the line this year. They'll come very, very close. The loss of Julianne Russell, of course, obviously any player at any club at this level is going to struggle to replace her. They've lost a couple of other girls as well. I know we were told about it on Twitter by some of the Galway people trying to play down their chances immediately before the show. But I think number 11 there for me is probably the signing of the summer, of the off-season, should I say. Rachel Kearns, 6 goals in 6 games, a player of the month, and then she left to play for Mayo. It turns out she's going back to Australia to play AFL in the summer. So she's only going to be around for a handful of months. So
that's the question. I'd say at the start of the season. I'm gonna flip this slightly, right? I don't think Rachel Kearns is very good. But for me, if Galway are to challenge for the league, I have them in second place as well. If Galway are to challenge for the league, I need to see a massive season from Emma Doherty, and I need to see a massive season from Kayla Bergen. Two of them have shown they have the potential to do it. They've shown the potential to score goals. And I'm going to include Rola Olasolo there as well, because Rola's another player who could score goals. And I think for Galway, if Galway are to win the league this year, I think Galway need to score goals. If you look at last year in terms of results, Galway won 13. They won 13 games. They drew 2, lost 5. They conceded 16 goals, same amount of Shells. Shells only scored 3 more goals. But there was certain games, and I just found that Galway struggled to maybe find the back of the net. I also think last year, and I'm going to take this into account as well, is the fact that Galway at times had to, that mad run where they had to play three massive games in a week, where I think the DLR, Wexford, and somebody else within a week.
Yeah. That
killed them. The middle of the season, towards the back end of the season, that killed them. I do think they have a bit more squad depth. Julianne Russell, it's going to be hard to replace. It's going to be hard to replace her. I do think players around the squad need to step up. Keeping Belichick, considering they lost Jamie Erickson, is huge. I know people say Jessica Berlin going was a big loss for them, but I do think they've got a very good goalkeeper in Jane Merrin in there, and I think
I don't think I don't think you can discount Abigail O'Neill either. I think those three
No,
would walk into
very good
squads.
goalkeepers.
They walk into starting 11s in some teams in the league without a shadow of a doubt.
They've three very good. They've three very good goalkeepers. I think they've a lot of good players, and like people are talking about losing Jamie Eriksson. The number 5 for me on that list is a big player into what happens with Galway this year.
Yeah, Shauna Fox. Now, a bit of information about Shauna Fox. Shauna Fox is not training with Galway at the moment. Don't know whether that's down to an injury or work commitments or other things going on, but has not been training up to now. That may change in the next couple of weeks. But
what do you think of number 70? What do you think of number 71 signing?
I think Niamh Farrelly is probably the signing of the close season. I think
so. I have a lot of questions on this, and I'm sure I'll get the answers over the next week or so, and I'm sure somebody's going to tell me. I'm wondering, is she traveling or is she living down there? I think if Niamh Farrelly can actually get back to the Niamh Farrelly before she left to go abroad, I think she's got a smashing sign. I think getting her out of Peamount.
I think we saw her ambition by the fact that she moved to Italy. I think that was a big move. Obviously, foreign country, foreign language, a different attitude to the game over there as well. And she went over there. Did it work out? Possibly not like she would have wanted. She came back to the UK and ended up back in Peamount last year. She'll have been disappointed with how that worked out because she was on the fringe of the Ireland squad when she kind of moved. Hasn't quite stepped on for her, but I think this is a great opportunity. And if she's decided she's committing all in to chase this dream of playing for Ireland or of winning the league again here in Ireland, I think kudos to her. I think it's a fantastic opportunity, not just for her, but for the club as well, because if she's on form and if she's plays to her potential, I think Niamh Farrelly is as good a midfielder as is in the league at the moment. And I think she could be the difference between them pushing on for that title and maybe just falling a bit short if it works out for her. I think
I'll say this. If Niamh Farrelly is as good as Niamh Farrelly can be, she will slot in, and the loss of Jenna Slattery won't be noticing.
100%.
And that's no disrespect to Jenna. I just think Niamh is a very, very good player. Jenna in her own right, she had a very, very, very good first half of the season. Probably didn't have the best second half of the season, but I think if Niamh Farrelly is on her A game, Niamh Farrelly will be somebody who we'll see week in, week out, probably putting 7, 8 out of 10s in for Galway.
Yeah, now let's go to the top spot. We both have them up there. They are the reigning FAI Cup winners. They're the reigning President's Cup winners. They're the form side across the last 6 months in the league. Really, just ran out of road towards the end of last season. It's Shelbourne, and a lot of familiar faces here. Of course, Kate Mooney smiling back at us there. But you look down through that squad list, and really, it's a who's who of quality players. It's going to be interesting to see how this pans out over the next couple of weeks. Rebecca Cook has come back into that team. She's a huge addition. Courtney McGuire, obviously, there in goal, but she'll probably be back up to Amanda McQuillan like she was last year. Avian Clancy's a huge addition.
Corney didn't play last year. Corney tore her ACL at the start of last season.
Yeah,
I think she's probably still a few weeks away.
Yeah, she wasn't talked for this President's Cup. She was in the celebration.
I expect Amanda. For me, the signing for Shells, Avian Clancy is probably the big signing for Shells. Kate Mooney with a full pre-season for Shells is going to be very interesting to me. And I said this on this show, and I've said it to people. Kate Mooney, for me, coming back last summer, was one of these that I wasn't sure about in the sense of, can she score the goals that they need? She'd done it for Peamount for that 6 months, but she'd never really done it on a out-and-out basis before that.
To be fair, she played like 15 minutes for DLR and scored a goal and got injured and lost the season.
But even before going to DLR, like in Michelle's previous, she hadn't necessarily. For me, if Shells are to win the league this year, Kate Mooney has to finish top scorer for me if Shells are to win the league this year, because of the gap that's closing with the other teams. I think Kate has to do that. Do I think she'll finish top scorer? I actually do. I think Kate is going to hit the ground running. If she stays injury free, I think she's going to hit the ground running. I think when I look at that Shells team, I think Avian Clancy's going to be quality from in midfield. Her, Alex Kavanagh, and Roma McLaughlin as a three in midfield it's disgusting when you think about it. It's just so good. And I think realistically for Shells, I think Shells is going to be a case of, can they do what they've done in recent seasons where their average of goals per game is really, really low against them? If they can do that, I think Shells go and win the league.
Yeah, I do think they're going to need to do better than they did at the weekend. The penalty from concession from Kiva Keenan is one, no more than the Athlone goal. Kiva Keenan is not going to want to watch that penalty. It was just a bit clumsy. She's better than that. I think we'll see that this season. Gabby Del Pico is one that's piqued your interest. Sorry for the pun.
Yeah, I've asked a little bit about her. Obviously played. It was in college in America. I'm interested
Harvard,
to see how she. I'm interested to see how she goes from this year. I don't think she'll displace Kate Mooney, but I think she's somebody who could have an impact for them. But I'm curious to see what she does over this season. But like when you look at Sheldon Mackenzie, Anthony is another one that's come in. It's a case of, I think Owen Wirren as a coach is going to be a lot better than Owen Wirren as a coach last year. Every time I spoke to Owen has always talked about the lessons he's learned from his first year in senior management in the League of Ireland. I think Owen is going to come on leaps and bounds. I don't expect to see Shells making some of the mistakes they necessarily made in terms of maybe at times making the wrong sub or things not going their way. I just think they'll be a little bit sharper, and I think they could score more goals than they scored last year. But I just think they're going to get over the line in the end.
Yeah, Sarah McCaffrey, of course, number 33. Not the Sarah McCaffrey who won an All-Ireland with Dublin, but a promising youngster, international caps to her name underage as well. So maybe one to watch, but not the one that Dubs fans will be familiar with. Sister of Jack, of course.
Right, let me throw you on the spot.
Okay.
We're going to have fixtures really quickly in a minute. Tell me, who's winning your player of the year? Who's winning your young player of the year?
Oh, I knew you were going to ask me this. I think young player.
How have you done a lot of research?
Oh, I have a list of who my team of the year is, but I don't have my player of the year. I think goalkeepers are going to be key this year. I think there's so much talent in the goalkeeping division across nearly every club. It's going to be really exciting. There's real competition for places. It's not a case of going, that's their number one for the entire season for any club this year. I think it's going to be really, really tight. If I had to pick a player of the year, oh God, looking at the list of players I have here, I really don't know. I think it's going to be one of the top two teams, and I'm actually going to go with Niamh Farrelly. I think if Niamh Farrelly is on fire, I think Niamh Farrelly could be one of the players to watch. And I'll also pick a second just because, Roisin Malloy, I think, will be, if Athlone are going to challenge for the title, it'll be down to what Roisin Malloy does this year. I think there's loads of talent on that Athlone side, but I think she's beginning to become that player that makes them tick.
Right, I'll give you an on the spot prediction. Kate Mooney scores 18 goals this season.
Okay.
Shells win the league, and Kate Mooney gets player of the year.
It's not a bad shout.
I think in terms of what you've said about Niamh Farrelly, I think Niamh Farrelly 100% has the potential. If I'm looking at young player of the year, I think someone like an Ella Kelly could have a massive impact for Shamrock Rovers this year. Could be there or thereabouts. I don't know if Aoife Kelly's still eligible. I think Aoife Kelly will be there or thereabouts as well for them. And the one other that I'd add into that category, I think Ellen Dolan will be close.
Yeah, I'd add Katie Keane potentially. I talked about the goalkeepers. I think if Shamrock Rovers have a good year, I think Katie Keane will have a good year. Probably the other
I'm not convinced Katie Keane. I'm not 100% convinced Katie Keane sees the season out with Shamrock Rovers.
Well, that's a different kettle of fish. The other person who we haven't mentioned so far is, I think, we're looking down through the list. I don't think a player from down the where we think is going to be down the grade is going to feature in those kind of player of the year conversations. But I think, yeah, I'm pretty happy with the choices I've given you there. There's somebody whose name is on the tip of my tongue now, and I can't remember who it was. Ava Brennan for young player of the year. She's very young though, so she might not get it because she's got so much eligibility left to be considered for that. Well, I think she would definitely be in that discussion as well. There's a few players. If I had to pick a player, I want to ask you a question before I finish up because we are way over time. Pick a player for me, not from the top half of the division. Who's going to have the biggest impact in those bottom 5 or 6 or 7 teams that isn't really going to feature in that discussion? But if there was a lower half of the table, who's going to make the impact there?
Katie Lawley or Madison McGuire from Treaty United.
Madison McGuire,
yeah. Or Katie Lawley from Treaty United.
I have one a little bit left field here, and I think I'm actually going to go with Sligo. Even though I've tipped them to be bottom, I think Kiva Flynn might have a massive season.
You have talked about her several times when we've spoke, and I wouldn't be surprised. I think if Sligo Rovers are to do well this year, Amber Hardy or Bonnie McKernan, whichever one who plays in goal, is going to have to be very good from this year, and I think they're both very capable.
And Emma Laverty in beside Emma Hansberry, if she's fit, could be a difference for them as well. But then, of course, what the hell do we know, Aaron? We're just taking a wild stab in the dark about who's going to finish where this season. We would like to hear from you. If you're listening or watching the show and you're kicking the screen or you're agreeing with us, do let us know. We do like to hear how bad we get it wrong, because it's part of the game, right?
The only good thing is we're willing to put our neck on the block. Absolutely.
I think Rachel Kearns, if she was here for the full season, would be hugely impactful in the decision where the league title is going to rest. If she's not here for the full year, which I believe is the case, less so, obviously, of an impact from her. But yeah, that's it. So we both have Shells winning the league. Who's going to win the Cups? All-Ireland Cup? We're going to see a winner from the North?
No, I think Galway are going to win the All-Ireland Cup. Galway are going to go 3 in a row, and I think we might have a Shells Galway FAI Cup final this year.
Wow, so it's Shells Galway 1-2 the whole way across it.
I don't know. I think we could have someone like a Wexford in the All-Ireland Cup final.
Any chance of a Glentoran or Linfield?
I'd love it. I'd absolutely love it. I think the competition needs it.
One player we haven't talked about, I think we might have mentioned it last week, big outing from Sligo Rovers, was mentioned Glentoran, is Kerry Lockery has moved cross-country effectively, but across the border as well from Sligo into Glentoran. She will feature, of course, in the Avenir Sports Cup later in the year. So interesting to see how she gets on there.
Jodie Lockery's not on the Sligo Rovers team sheet either this year.
May also be gone to, we don't know. She could be gone to Glentoran as well, or there might be, Derry might be close to her. She's based up there in North Donegal as well. Anyway, that's it for this week. Have you agreed with us? Do let us know. Have you not agreed with us? Yeah.
Don't forget the fixtures.
Okay.
Haven't even run through the fixtures for this week. Just give people a reminder.
Does it matter? I don't actually have them here in front of me. Let me just pull them. Okay, shout them out there.
We have on Saturday afternoon at 3 o'clock, we've got Treaty United against Waterford. Also at 3 o'clock, Sligo Bows. At 4 o'clock, Shells Shamrock Rovers. The TV game at 4:45 is Athlone Town versus Wexford FC. Galway United and DLR Waves at 5 o'clock, and Peamount and Cork City are also at 5 o'clock.
Interesting. So we'll run down through them. Let's start at the early kickoff. Sligo Rovers Bows. Thoughts on this? I suppose, given our predictions, we have to go for Bows in this one, do we?
It's an important away fixture for Bows. If Bows don't turn up, Sligo could turn them over. But as you said earlier, Sligo Rovers could, if they start the season the way they finished last year, they'll win this game. But realistically, on paper, Bows should be winning it.
Yeah, I do actually have the. I don't know. I was going to say put them on screen. Well, Treaty and Waterford.
I was going to ask you that one.
Treaty Waterford. Oh, it's so difficult. It's a great start for Waterford. Like it's a really winnable game for a new club. You got to be happy getting that draw, even away. You got to fancy your chances of causing a surprise. And they'll want to come in and make an impact and kind of say, "We're here. We're at the party. We can win games." Treaty also have that focus coming into it, going, "Here's a great chance to get our season up and running with a win, build a bit of confidence." I think this could be a really high scoring. Now that I've said it's going to be 0-0, but I think it could be a really high scoring back and forth clash between the two of them. I'd be really excited to see what both managers bring to the table in this. I think Treaty might just shade it. I'm going to go something crazy like 4-3 to Treaty on this one.
Interesting.
Next game, Shells and Shamrock Rovers, probably the tie of the weekend.
I think Shells will win it 2-0. Came in and score, Bryce.
Oh, you're giving her that crack already. It's straight up. Like.
She's gonna score. I'm telling you now. I might see a Paddy Power give me an answer.
We don't promote betting on this platform. These are the fixtures now. I do have them to hand. Galway and DLR. That game is obviously the wrong time, but I'm sorry. Athlone Wexford. Athlone Wexford is the TV game.
Athlone Wexford is on TV. That's why it's at 4:45.
Yeah, so let's look at that one. Athlone Wexford, who's going to win here in the post-Nicholas Synod era?
I fancy Athlone, but if Wexford are to finish third, like I think they can, they need to win this game.
Galway DLR. Can you see past the Galway win? Comfortable?
No, but I think they'll come out on top.
And finally, Peamount and Cork. Again, we've predicted one at one end of the table and one at the other.
Just remember this. Cork City beat Peamount in PRL Park last year. Anything can happen. First day of the season.
Absolutely, it's all to be decided. From 3 o'clock to 7:30 kick or 5:30 kickoff, 5 o'clock kickoff on Saturday evening. So plenty of entertainment. Of course, you can watch all of these games. The Athlone game, Wexford game is on TG Cahir, but you can catch the rest of them on LOI TV annual subscription, something like €99. Great value if you're interested in the League of Ireland.
$9.99 a monthly subscription.
Yeah, for 12 months minimum contract, but it's probably the best value sports offering out there at the moment in terms of watching games. And that's it. We don't think there's anything really else to talk about, but we would like to hear from you. So if you're listening, do get in touch. Let us know on socials what you think. How wrong did we get it? Have we put your favorite team too many points up the table or too many points down the table? Do let us know. Aaron, we'll be back next week. We'll actually have some football to talk about.
Can't wait.
Good. Well, listen, we'll be back next week. We shall talk to you then.